Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following. Welcome to Full Bloom, the award-winning show that celebrates life. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian. My guest tonight is the president of the Fox Center for Spiritual Awareness in Springfield, Massachusetts. He's also a medium, and we're going to talk about both tonight. His name is Rick Boisvere. Rick, thanks very much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
The whole concept of being a medium is something I am fascinated by. So let's talk about basics first. What is a medium?
Well, a medium is someone who uses an ability that everyone is born with, a psychic ability. But someone who is simply a psychic uses that ability that everybody has and chooses to develop or not. But they use that ability to tune into a person or an object or a place. But someone who is a medium uses that same ability to tune into spirit people, spirit energy, the auras of people who have passed.
So we are talking about a connection with people who have died.
In mediumship, yes.
All right, now I think you just answered my second question, but let me just clarify. You said that everyone has this ability, and so it's not necessarily a gift for the chosen few?
It is a gift for all of us, just like the gift of being musical. Some people have a stronger gift, but any person could take lessons and learn how to play. Our biggest gift is our free will, which gives us the choice of whether or not to develop our other gifts.
So you can train this gift of being a medium, this ability to connect with the other side?
To someone who is willing to train.
So what do you need to be willing? What does that mean?
You need to be open-minded,
Okay.
not gullible, but open-minded,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be putting out positive energy. That's a very important thing.
All right, I want to kind of go back to when you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first time you experienced a connection with someone who had died?
Well, it did not happen as a child.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, it was after I was 30 years old. My mother has been a practicing psychic for about 30 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and I always thought that it was just something that she could do and no one else could. And it took getting very sick and questioning my own mortality for me to turn to the spiritualist church and see what else there was beyond this. Part of it was a skepticism and going to the church to prove to myself that it wasn't real. And it kind of backfired on me and kind of snowballed from there. But it wasn't until I was an adult.
That's interesting. Can I ask what type of illness? I guess what I'm asking is, was it life-threatening?
At the time, it was very briefly life-threatening. It was a lung infection that I had. I have
Mm-hmm.
asthma, and I just got some sort of bacterial infection that they never really identified. I got over it. It took about 6 months, but I spent some time. I spent a Christmas in intensive care, and there was a very brief time when I thought I might not be leaving here physically. So it was a little bit scary, and when I started to feel a little better a few weeks later, I said, I'm going to go down to the church and take the advice that my mom had given me for many years.
And did you, at that point, start training to connect with the other side, or did you have some sort of an experience then that you did sort of that spontaneous connection?
No, it wasn't spontaneous at all. It was something that I actually went looking for.
Okay.
I went to the church. They did offer development classes. It's a combination of developing your ability to communicate and healing ability, which to me are one and the same, but they kind of differentiate them a little bit for their purposes. But after a very brief time, a few months in the class, things started falling together. Not profoundly, not extreme. You have to be very, very, very patient with this because it can be extremely subtle, and you get yourself in the way for a long time. It takes a while before you can weed out what's you and what's not as it comes into your mind. So it does take a great deal of patience.
I would wonder then sometimes if because you want something so much, might a person imagine
Absolutely.
a connection? And then the other part of me says, well, what is imagination? And maybe that in itself is part of the connection. I don't know.
Imagination, intuition could be inspiration. They can be one and the same.
Well, I know I've often wondered, for people who are psychic, what has been the the family response? Now, obviously, in your case, your mother,
Right.
was a practicing psychic, so there was no question.
Right.
But what about from friends?
For the most part, anyone who knew me knew what my mother did, so it was kind of not really expected, but not a surprise to anyone. I've had very little negative feedback from friends. The only thing I can say is at a certain time when my children were a certain age, some of the other parents in the community were a little bit taken aback by what I did, and you can't go play over at that house because of what this man does or something. And I don't feel that now. My children are all adults, so it's not an issue at this point.
And for them as adults, are any of them also, did they manifest psychic ability?
Well, they all believe, but none of them have actually pursued it. They have their own pursuits at this point in their lives, their educations and their relationships and so forth. So none of them have actually delved into it at this point, but they all know that if they need it, it'll be there for them.
Okay. Rick, one of the things I often think about you when you talk about psychics, you talk about mediums particularly, I think of movies where they show seances.
Right.
And people are sitting around a room and there's a table and something is knocking or moving or something under the table. Is that all like a Hollywood version of what a seance is?
For the most part, it's pretty ridiculous. But on the other hand, what actually does happen in those situations is so subtle you couldn't put it on film. So you have to use a little poetic license in order to get the message across that someone is feeling something, because you can't put a feeling on film.
I never heard it explained that way, and that makes so much sense. So the fact that you could say that tells me that you've been to a seance.
I have.
Did it frighten you? Or let me ask a different way. Has any of this ever frightened you?
I have never been frightened by anything. I've been startled, but not frightened. I mean, if a kitten jumped out of a closet, it would startle me, but I'm not afraid of kittens. But sudden noises, I do some paranormal investigations, and I've been startled a few times, but there's never been anything that I felt threatened by. Not yet.
Okay. In terms of mediums, because you mentioned earlier that if a person is open-minded but not gullible, and that person can take training.
Right.
When I think of training, and I think of, well, like physicians or teachers, I mean, that they're areas of specialty.
Yeah.
Are there areas of specialties for mediums?
There absolutely are. There are different types of mediumship. There are people who are clairvoyant, which means clear vision or seeing things. You don't actually literally see them with your physical eyes. They're impressed upon your mind, but they are visions. There are people who are clairaudient, who hear things. There is clairsentience, which is just getting a feeling of something and getting impressions for that. And then, of course, there's the difference between spirit communication, regular psychic ability, and healing, which are all tied together.
Can you tell me a little about each?
Well, as I was saying before, psychic ability is simply the ability to tune into something or someone physically. If someone is sitting in front of you, or if they hand you an object and they need you to get impressions from that and translate those impressions into some sort of a message, there may or may not be any conscious involvement as far as spirit is concerned. It might be just the energy that's left in an object or the energy that is around a person.
Okay.
Mediumship is using that same ability, once again, to contact someone who has passed, or energies of someone who has passed.
When you contact, when it is your purpose to contact someone from the other side, can you ask for someone in particular, or is it a matter of open the door and whoever shows up?
Well, I tell people there isn't a switchboard, so you can't say calling Uncle Bob. You can say it, but Uncle Bob may not be there. And there's other reasons besides he's not there that he may not come through. He may not be able to. He may not be at a point in his development where he can come through. He may not have anything to say. If someone hasn't been in the spirit world for very long, often they have other things to do. They have bigger fish to fry for a little while before they can come back and see us. I do get my best responses when I call on people. If I actually say we want to, call on this particular spirit. If someone has come for a personal one-on-one reading, they've made an appointment not just with me, but with the people in the spirit world. And those people will be there because they know they want to be heard. So for the most part, people do come through, but I've had a few cases where, I want to speak to my grandmother, and I'm sorry I'm not getting anything. Your grandmother is not here, whether she's not here for whatever reason or she's busy with something else. There's no guarantee, there's no switchboard, although there does seem to be a bulletin board. So even if grandma's not here, you may still get something from her that comes through someone else.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, Rick, I think one of the things I was thinking about when I invited you to be on the show is the fact that for most people, death is a very uncomfortable topic.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, especially now in society today, with the popularity of shows like Medium,
Mm-hmm.
and with national, international tours by mediums, how do you correlate the two? The taboo talking about death and yet this real interest that people have in knowing more about it. Do you think we're bridging something here?
I think it waxes and wanes, and if we look historically at the whole thing, the whole paranormal and psychic and spirit communication thing, the spiritual movement has always flourished at a time when things were very, very good, when the economy was good, and then kind of fallen off a little bit when things weren't so well. There was a huge influx of spiritualism in the 50s when everything was going really well. The economy was good. People wanted to know what else there was. And then it kind of slipped off again. And it's starting to build back up again, which you could look at as a good sign.
I had no idea. And so you're saying that the correlation is because things are going well and people are, well, in a way, you could be described as greedy, that people are looking for more, or that they're more adventurous, more secure, and they're looking to have a greater
I think security
adventure.
is a better answer.
Okay.
I mean, just from my experience personally, I see a lot of people who have been successful and have gotten everything that they can get, and they want to know what else there is. Not that they're being greedy, but I've done this, now what else can I do?
Yeah, and maybe that there's an emptiness or a lack of satisfaction
Right.
in all those
And
material
people are
things.
no longer busy. They're not busy with the stresses as much as they are
Mm-hmm.
in happier times. You know.
Well, Rick, let me ask you too. With so many things, you know, we have the idea of, oh, this is going to be so wonderful and so great, it would be so helpful. Have you seen any backlash, any drawback to the fact that people are more willing to explore the
Absolutely.
concept
The biggest problem with the whole thing is that there are so many people out there who will take advantage of that. There are so many. I tell people there are 3 different kinds of mediums. The first 70% are the phonies, the ones that are absolutely lying and making it up. And of that last 30%, probably 2/3 of them are the people who are delusional and just think that they're channeling Alexander the Great or Abraham Lincoln, and they're really not. It's just their own misguided delusion. And then the last are the ones that are genuine mediums and really are connecting with the
How do you
other side.
find them? How do you know?
Well, you have to decide for yourself. You have to discern right from wrong. I tell people to get as much information from as many sources as they can, and then try and pick out what makes most sense to them.
Now, what do you mean by sources? Do you mean talk to people who have been? Because I have friends, and they'll go,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they want a reading, and do you know anybody good?
Right. That's the best way is word of mouth. Yes.
Okay, but how would a person even rate a medium? What are the markers?
It depends on what the person is looking for. You know, if they're looking to see the future, I'm a medium. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't see the future. The people who I communicate with on the spirit side, they're not fortune tellers either. Now, I may be able to see down the street while they can see around the corner. They may see things differently, but that doesn't mean they can see the future. So it all depends on what people are looking for.
What do most people want?
Well, I feel my function as a medium is twofold. One thing is to let people know that our loved ones are not gone. They're still here. They're simply changed. And they continue to live. They don't just exist and sit on a cloud with a harp. They have things to do. It's a progressive existence. And the second part of my job is to reassure people that when it's our time to leave, we don't have to go away or leave our loved ones behind. We stay here with them.
That's very comforting. That's a very comforting statement. And I'm assuming here, I mean, that would be part of what I would certainly take from a reading,
Mm-hmm.
that sense of comfort. Is that something that people seek, or is it more a curiosity or a resolution of something? Or
No, I don't get a lot of curiosity. I get people who really believe in spirit communication. They don't understand that they can do it themselves, but they come because they want to know who's around them and what's up with them, basically.
All right, Rick. my mother, my mother died 46 years ago tomorrow. And how would I go about connecting with her?
Well, you would just have to listen. It might take a very long time. You can't pick a specific day, but you could pick a time of day to meditate every day and let her know, even saying it out loud, that this is the time you can communicate with me. This is the time you can come through. And for a while, you'll get yourself in the way. It'll be what you want to hear or what you want to experience. But after a while, if you're very consistent and persistent, you will start to weed out what's you and what's not.
When people do experience this, do they tend to say that was a moving experience and satisfying experience and it's all I need? Or do they say that was moving and satisfying and I want another one and I want another one and another one?
Actually, for the most part, it's usually what people need. They just need to know that grandma and grandpa are okay, or that mom and dad aren't mad at me anymore, or there's forgiveness and there's still love. And that's pretty satisfactory to most people.
That would be very, very satisfactory, yes. I want to spend a little time talking about the Fox Center for Spiritual Awareness in Springfield, because in case you're just joining us, this is Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian, and I'm talking with Rick Boisvere, who is the president of the Fox Center for Spiritual Awareness in Springfield, Massachusetts, and he is a medium. So tell me about the Fox Center. What do you do there?
Well, the Fox Center is an educational center, and what we do is we have people come not only from this area but from all over the country and all over the world to lecture and do demonstrations and workshops on all things spiritual, metaphysical, psychic, anything connected with the continuation of life after physical death.
Yeah, you have quite an impressive list of speakers.
We do,
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, they're wonderful speakers.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the principles of your organization, because I think those are important. I think it's very important to find out what does an organization stand for, what do they support, so that people can be discerning and deciding where they're going to go to study. And there are several, but I've wanted to focus on two. One principle was proving the existence of true communication between the spiritual and physical worlds.
Right.
Tell me a little about that.
Well, when you say proving, communication or the continuation of life after physical death is not something that I can prove to you. It's something that can be proven to you, but you have to prove it. It has to be your own. In other words, I can tell you that I believe this, but I can't show it to you. I can tell you that I believe in rocks, but I can show you the rocks. I can't show you the spirits. It has to be your own personal experience. It's the only way that it can work.
That's like love.
Absolutely.
You can tell me what it feels like, and you can describe it. And as a romance writer, I write about it all the time.
Right.
But a person has to feel it.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about the principle of benevolence and compassion?
Well, that's a pretty standard natural law, like attracts like. If you put out positive energy, surround yourself with positive energy, that's what you're going to get back. If you put out negative energy, you're going to get kicked. You're going to get negative energy.
And that being a principle of the Fox Center, that would be that says to me this is the way the organization operates.
That's right.
So mission statement, which is also very important. I just pulled just a portion of the mission statement, and it said, educating students to understand their personal responsibility in learning spirit, communication, and the natural laws. Talk to me about that personal responsibility.
Well, personal responsibility, I mean, you're given a gift, and you have a choice of how to use that gift. It sounds kind of hokey when you say, should you use your gifts for good or evil, but you do have that choice.
There are no ethics. I'm working on a book right now, a paranormal romance, and the whole theme is the premise. There are no ethics in magic, only the ethics of the witch.
Right.
Because the heroine in the story is a witch. But this would be the same type thing.
Absolutely.
The ethics, it would be for the individual.
Right.
So what do you talk about in terms of ethics and personal responsibility?
Well, we do have a few lectures from people who lecture specifically on personal responsibility and natural law and how we're supposed to respond and react to spirit intervention. So it's not my focus. My focus is communication with spirit for other people, but it's written out very well for anyone to see in all of our bylaws and our mission statements and so forth. And it's pretty simply stated that you put out good energy, you get back good energy, and that's what we're there to do. We're there to contact spirit. We're there to invoke, not provoke spirits.
Big difference.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about some of the classes you have, because, of course, I looked on that list of classes, immediately opened up my calendar to see, okay, how many can I go?
Right.
How many can I go to? So one of them is Unearthing Past Lives. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, the lady who's doing the class, I've worked with her a couple of times in a group setting where we're doing a group meditation, and she's very much in touch with her own past life. She has recall that is beyond what I've seen in others who have recall. She claims to recall parts of 32 different past lives, which is pretty incredible. And she's not someone who you would talk to and not believe, so she's very credible. And she is doing, the class that she's doing is a workshop, not just a lecture, where she is actually instructing people on how to meditate and how to do this, because most people think you need to go to a psychologist and be hypnotized, or you need to be drugged or medicated, and that isn't the case. She's teaching people how to see parts of their own past lives, and the reason for that would be to see how they correlate with our present lives.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because years ago I had a past life regression. I was actually interviewing the person as a speaker for a writer's workshop, and I thought, well, before I engage this person to speak, I should find out what this is all about. So I went to her, and she did a past life regression. Well, let me tell you something. I left there thinking, whether I believe this or not is immaterial. The point is, the revelations that came from it answered so many questions.
Right.
And broke a lot of negative patterns that I'd been living with.
Right.
And so I left there thinking, it doesn't matter to me if it's real or not, if someone can prove or not. For me, it worked.
Right. And that's the preface of books like Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And he even states that he doesn't know whether they're actual past lives, but whatever it is, it's helping them in their present lives. So it doesn't really matter if it's real or not.
And I think part of it is the power of story. I mean, of course, I'm biased as a storyteller, but I think there's a lot to do with the stories we tell ourselves, whether it is in this life or in some other life.
Right.
We create those stories. What about scrying? Now, I know that's a class you're teaching.
Yes.
So what is scrying?
Well, scrying is gazing. It's usually associated with gypsies and crystal balls. It did start out with water. People would look into pools of water, and then they kind of went with that and discovered that if you put black ink in the water, it was a little bit different. Different colors did different things. And there have been scryers who use things like smoke and fog and things like that. Again, crystal balls. Mirrors is one of the most common things, which is what I'll be using in the workshop that we'll be doing. And we're going to do a group viewing with a very large mirror, which is called a psychomantium, which is usually a room without any windows and an artificial light source behind the people. And it's sort of a group meditation looking into a large mirror. And it's been documented that people see the same things at the same time. They're not just imagining their own things. There are things that are actually coming in. And so we're going to do that, and then after that we're going to do individual non-guided meditation where everyone has their own handheld mirror and gets their own images and visions and so forth.
So you're talking a mirror. So if I'm in that class, am I looking at myself in the mirror?
If you're looking at the mirror, you want to tilt the mirror so you're not seeing yourself, and you're not looking at the glass, you're trying to look beyond the glass. You're trying to look inside the mirror.
Oh, I see.
So you're trying to just get a focal point that's beyond the surface of the glass, and it should be as dark as possible in the room. You need a little bit of light, otherwise you're just in darkness. You have to see something. But the psychomantium is usually a room without windows and without light, and we put one small light behind everyone, and the mirror would be tilted so it's slightly up, so you're looking kind of at the ceiling or the space above yourself, which should be as dark as possible.
Fascinating. I'm
very
going to try
fascinating.
that. Okay, now there's another workshop coming up on seashells and ocean crystals. A woman, Michelle Hansen,
Right.
teaching that one. Can you tell me a little about that?
Well, I've never met Michelle, but I've read a lot about what she does. And seashells are just another tool. It's just a tool that she has chosen to tune into. It's just like using a crystal ball or using tarot cards, or I mean, in different faiths and different religions, they use things like chicken bones and stones and crystals and things like that. It's just another tool, and she has developed a way to read these seashells and these objects and get impressions from them.
So Rick, where is the Fox Center for Spiritual Awareness?
Well, right now we don't have an actual physical location. We move according to the need. We move to where the people are. So we've been moving around quite a bit. But we usually try to stay in the Springfield-Enfield area, Springfield, Massachusetts, Enfield, Connecticut, right in that area. We've done some things in Chicopee and some things at the Shriners Hall in Springfield.
So you would bring the workshops or classes or particular speakers to certain locations?
Yes.
Is that
yes.
how that works?
Yeah, we're mobile, yeah.
I like that. Very much like a gypsy caravan.
Absolutely,
You can go
sure.
to the place. So does a person, would a person take out a membership at the Fox Spiritual Awareness, or is this that you find a class you like and attend, or how does this
Well,
work?
I mean, you can go to specific classes like the ones that we've discussed. There are also weekly development circles where you can go every week. It's very inexpensive. We ask for a donation of $10, and it's a 2-hour class, and it's just a guided meditation and sharing of messages and images and feelings that we've gotten during that time.
Rick, how long have you been doing this?
I have been training for about 14 years, and I've been doing professional mediumship for about 8 or 9 years.
Have you seen a difference in the way things are now? I think more in lines of public acceptance, or the curiosity, or a heightened interest after something like the terrorist attack of September 11th. Anything like that you've observed sort of as the timeline of your experience?
I think any profound thing like the World Trade Center thing kind of piques people's interest and kind of twists them a little bit toward this for a time. So yeah, that is the case. But I think it's just, like I say, it kind of waxes and wanes throughout history. And right now it's at a point where people are very accepting of it. But I have been on radio shows from the South, and it's not as accepted down there.
No.
And you can't go somewhere and wear a big sign that says I'm a medium, because you'll have rocks thrown at you, literally, in some cases.
Except in Lilydale.
Well, Lilydale isn't in the
Lilydale,
South.
Florida?
Lilydale is in New York, near Buffalo.
Oh, well, what
you're
about...
thinking Casadega, Florida.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, yes.
The same kind of thing. It's a spiritual camp. And there's also Lake Pleasant right here in Montague, Massachusetts, which was a spiritual camp from the 1850s. And they still have a chapel there, and they still have spirit services there.
Do you ever get requests from people for some sort of a subject or training that you haven't had? Like whatever's like the newest thing that's out there?
Yeah, well, it's all kind of different lanes of the same road. And if I don't feel qualified to do something, I will say so. And I'll just say, maybe this person can help you, or at least give you some advice and tell you who to go to if I don't know. And
I think helping is the key with so many of the spiritual avenues. I've experienced it myself.
That is our goal, is to help.
And I thank you very much for coming tonight and talking about this. I'm fascinated, and my guess is there are people in the audience who are fascinated by this also. So Rick Boisvere, Fox Center for Spiritual Awareness in Springfield, Massachusetts.
That's right.
Thanks very much. Let me also thank my Full Bloom crew. And finally, to you in the viewing audience, I say this every week, and I mean it sincerely. I do know the value of time. Thank you once again for sharing an evening with me. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following: